becoming not sustainable.
Make a wave pool up here or something. Make a wave pool here. So
Yeah, some people like driving. I can drive.
Yeah. So they all true.
People like
When you cross the line,
All right, there we go. I'm ready for my close-up. All right, guys, it is 5:03, 3 minutes late, but it's all right. The gang's all here. We have a full house for the filter number 79. Welcome, guys. The name of today's episode, come on in, make yourself at home, is Bitcoin Breakup or Breakout. There is all kinds of turmoil on Reddit the last few days. Bitcoin is reaching its capacity, and we're going to talk about that. But before we get to all that, we've got local news. There's some interesting local developments. We'll talk a little bit about that. As always, we'll talk about the Bitcoin price, do a little Bitcoin health checkup, and we're going to go around the world. Today we're going to stop in Japan. Got a story from Japan that was posted on the Bitcoins in Bali Facebook group. We're also going to go to Somalia. Something going on in Somalia with mobile payments. And we're going to go to China. Turns out there's $25 trillion in China that's looking for a way out of the country. Some people think Bitcoin might be useful for that. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. And then we'll wrap things up with the Bitcoin breakup or breakout. See if Bitcoin will survive another week. We shall see. All right, I'm just going to share my screen here, guys, so the people at home can see what we're seeing up on the big screen there. And I know that looks a little weird, but hopefully it will be okay. All right. There we go. Okay. So the filter number 79, Bitcoin breakup or breakout. We're coming to you live from Hubud, the premier co-working space in Ubud, Bali, right across the street from the Monkey Forest. We have a nice air-conditioned room that Hubud provides for us every week. And if you're not with us today, if you're joining us online, we hope that you will visit us in Bali and come to a Bitcoin meetup. We do it every Tuesday night, rain or shine, 5 p.m., not to be missed. Okay, when we're not together, we have a little Twitter conversation going on at hashtag Bitcoins in Bali. You can see that right there. And I've got a little tweet all teed up so we can let people know that we're broadcasting live. So that'll go out right now with the Bitcoins in Bali tag. And also, we've got the Facebook group. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, you've got to get on here so that we can crowdsource all the crazy news about Bitcoin every week. The way things work is we post stories to the Bitcoins in Bali public group, and then when we get together in person, we talk about these things. So there's way too much information for anybody to keep on top of during the week. So we're basically collaborating to stay on top of the news. If you think something is important, then hopefully you will post it here. We can discuss it online in the comments, but then when we get together in person, we can duke it out. So if you're not a member of the Facebook group, get on there. We also have our YouTube channel, and immediately following each Tuesday night show, it goes right up on YouTube. So if you ever miss an episode, you can catch up there. Okay, local news. Bitcoin 101 happens this Saturday. And it's about half full right now. Last time we did this last month, we had close to 30 people in this room. Just to give you an idea, I think there's about 15 in the room right now. So we're a victim of our own success. And this time around, we are going to limit the number. So you definitely have to register. If you register, then you're letting us know that you're coming. If you want to come or you know somebody that wants to come, then please send them to bitcoinsinbali.org/Bitcoin101. It's going to be fun. We start from the very beginning. We assume people know nothing about Bitcoin, and then around about noon, we go to a local restaurant and spend our Bitcoins to buy lunch. So it's a very fun outing. Just a moment here.
Where's lunch on Saturday?
Probably the Onion, because sometimes people show up and they don't have scooters and they're on foot, so it's the closest place. If any of you would like to recruit a closer place, I'm all ears. So maybe that'll be the impetus to sign up more businesses. Okay. More local news. We had the Bitcoin Film Festival on January 22nd last month, and it was a big deal, lots of fun. We took over the Paradiso Theater, and this is an international film festival, and they had the last screening, I think, last week, and they picked the winners. So for those of you who joined us for the Bitcoin Film Festival, they announced the winners. It's Bitcoin, The End of Money as We Know It, which is I think it was the second movie that we showed, and it was all about the mechanics of Bitcoin and what the world might look like when we're using cryptocurrencies. It was really great. And how Bitcoin is like the internet of money. It was the short film. I think it was the one comparing Bitcoin to the internet from, I don't know, 1995 or something. So I have these movies, and I don't know exactly if we have the rights to show them, but it's possible we might have a movie night or something where we show some of these in the future. We're talking about it. We used to have movie night here at Hubud, but now that it's rainy season, it's not as fun to watch movies outside. It tends to like drive people away. I don't know why. I mean, people are just wimpy, I guess. But anyway, we're looking for venues to have movie showings indoors. If you have any ideas. Okay, more local news. We have a new Bitcoin merchant in Ubud, the Michi Retreat and Resort, and I think Stephen, you helped these guys out, yeah?
Yeah, but that's the dead site. That's still live. It's
Oh,
actually michivillage.com, but soon enough that one will be redirected to the new one.
Okay, all right. Is everyone aware of Michi? Has anyone been there? It's yeah. It's kind of a cool place. It's like really eclectic. There's like handmade art everywhere. All the doorways are like these handmade tiled archways and things, and it's kind of a cool place. Yeah.
And basically, Eco Village, co-working space.
Oh, really?
Living space. There's lots and lots of space to do anything in there. It's
Okay.
a very large area.
Like maybe a Bitcoin meeting or.
Oh yeah, or get-togethers or that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it's in renovation
Or
in the
movie
process
night,
of
yeah.
Renovation.
Okay. And they're gonna spend all of their Bitcoin millions on renovations when they get rich after having accepted Bitcoin for.
Yeah, they're into it now. You saw Mel Lowe.
Yeah.
She's part of the team, and Manu's part of the team.
Oh, really? They're all involved with Michi.
Yeah, Michi and Project Evo, which is like a nationwide crypto complementary currency project with eco villages nationwide.
Oh, really? Nationwide in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know anything about that. We got to talk about that,
It's
man.
coming.
Okay. Cool. Now, can I buy a sandwich at Michi?
Yes, you can.
I can. Can I like stay the night there for
Yes.
Bitcoin?
Yeah. So some rooms are in great shape, and some are in the process of getting renovated.
Should we go over there and like try and eat like a lunch or dinner over there? Would that work?
What do you call it? Japanese food. The deep fried vegetables are really great.
Yeah, tempura.
Tempura, yeah.
Is it kind of a Japanese theme over there? Is that
Yeah, it's a Japanese owner.
okay? Cool.
And
Cool.
it's been taken over
Hello,
by the
JP. Oh man, it's sitting room only today. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Pushing down there.
Yeah, you're good. Okay. We want to make sure you're comfortable, JP. You good? Did you get your hair cut? Oh, whew. Whoa. Sorry, that would have been big news. We would have had that would be local news for sure. Where am I here? Okay. So it's been a while since we looked at this coinmap.org, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we've got going on here in Bali in terms of building a Bitcoin community. Can you see how big that nice red dot is there in Bali? There are lots and lots of more businesses accepting Bitcoin since we last looked at coinmap.org. If you look here, I think there's about, 45, including a couple new places to stay up in the north part of the island. So we need like some people to do some recon, go up there and stay the night, see how the Bitcoin works up there. But I think I remember getting a few emails about someone asking me about setting things up. But I didn't have much to do with it. It sounds like they figured it out on their own, got themselves on CoinMap. It's really cool when that happens. You know, it's like kind of just organic growth and people kind of taking the bull by the horns, doing it themselves. So they don't need any permission. They don't need to sign up with anybody. They can just take the ball and run with it. I mean, I'm really encouraged by stuff like this. I just hope it becomes more and more. In order to promote that kind of thing, on the bitcoinsandbali.org site, we've got this Get Involved page. And we're really trying to build a Bitcoin economy here locally. And basically trying to, at least have a page that shows that we're trying to do this, right? Again, it's an organic effort. You know, I'm not the leader. I'm just kind of like putting it out there. There's lots of people that are interested in this kind of thing. We've also raised some money. There's been some money donated already. So some of these things that we want to do, it's possible we can pay for some of these things. We were able to buy some of the promotional materials for the Bitcoin Film Festival, for example. So we're really trying to get things started. You can see I've listed some of the things that we want to kind of attract people for. Hopefully there will be people showing up from anywhere, from all over the world, because of something interesting we've got going on here locally. So if you want to get involved, please see me afterward and check out this bitcoinsandbali.org/get-involved, because if there's anything we can do to improve the copywriting, if you've got any ideas about what we want to do, basically this will be a group effort, but I think there's lots of people that I've talked with over the past 2 years, and we've been working on this for 2 years already, have expressed interest in this, and we haven't really been very organized. And I'm just trying to take a step in the more organized direction, because a lot of great things have happened, but I think with a little bit of concerted effort, some really great things can happen.
Gary, we should mention the Facebook page then too, like the Bitcoins and Bali Lab.
Yeah. There's a Facebook group, but there's a few question marks about that. So, but if you want to get involved, just come talk to us, and we might be better organized next week. Sorry, I'm not. But right now, it's going to be the old-fashioned way. Okay. All right. So let's talk about price. We are in Indonesia, and our friends over at Bitcoin.co.id run the largest Bitcoin exchange in Indonesia, and turns out right now, one Bitcoin is worth close to 6 million Indonesian rupiah. What's really interesting about this is we've been keeping an eye on this volume number for a long time. And I remember when we first started, they showed up about 1.5 years ago. And they were doing like 10 Bitcoins a day, 7 Bitcoins a day. And they have opened up an API, a trading API. And oftentimes Bitcoin is less expensive here than in other places. Also, when there are drastic price moves, the price in Indonesia lags behind other markets. So somebody has taken advantage of this API and is trading Bitcoin in and out of the Indonesian market, right? So it's a kind of an interesting phenomenon. And I think it's a good thing. You know, if we have a very liquid market for Bitcoin in this country, then it will be easier for people to come and go and trade their fiat for Bitcoin and Bitcoin for fiat on their way in and out. I think this is a really good thing, and these guys are doing a really fantastic job, I think, creating a liquid market for Indonesia. So if you haven't already, check those guys out. If you have an Indonesian bank account, it's good to have an account with these guys. You can, oftentimes I'm buying Bitcoin for less than I do in other parts of the world. So check them out. All right. But usually we're used to talking about Bitcoin in terms of US dollars. And today we're at $436.50. So that's up from last week. Here's the Bitcoin time machine. Last week we were at about 425. Now I think we peaked right around here, 438. We're kind of playing around with 440. And, this is all despite the turmoil that Bitcoin is facing right now. So there's a lot of things going on in the world. Bitcoin tends to react positively when there's negative information around the world. The price tends to go up when there's capital controls or some sort of worry about, for example, when the Swiss depegged their currency from the euro, that tends to have an effect on the Bitcoin price because people are wondering when this grand experiment that these central bankers are running around the world, if it should come crashing down, perhaps Bitcoin will be a safe haven or be seen as one of the safe havens that is at people's disposal, and it tends to drive the price up. But I would hold that the price is being suppressed because we've got all these problems right now. Bitcoin continues to struggle, although I use Bitcoin regularly and it seems to be working just fine for me. But we are right at capacity, folks, and it's possible that things could get a little unfriendly from a youth perspective, but we shall see. Here's our little Bitcoin health check. Bitcoin, unlike other currencies, allows you to see exactly what's going on with the currency at all times. The entire planet can pull up this web page or do their own analysis on the blockchain itself and see all of these figures. One thing that happened recently is we passed 400,000 blocks. So the blockchain is made up of blocks, and the entire blockchain has over 400,000 blocks in it right now. Incidentally, when we get to 420,000 blocks, the block reward will be cut in half. You can see right here that every 10 minutes there's 25 new Bitcoins. That's about $10,000 worth of new value created every 10 minutes, right? So every day that the Bitcoin price stays the same, it's absorbing hundreds of thousands of dollars in new value, in new investment, etc. But when this figure reaches 420,000, this will turn into a 12.5 every 10 minutes. So everybody who's supporting the Bitcoin network will get half of the money they got on the block previous. So whoever wins 419,999 will get 25 Bitcoins, and then poor next guy will only get 12.5. Now, the last time this happened was about 4 years ago, and it had a very strong upward pressure on the Bitcoin price. But I think people are probably pricing that in a little bit now, but who knows? We have yet to see what will happen. But keep your eye on this block count, because around about middle of July, this is going to say 420,000, and the block reward is going to be cut in half. The other thing I thought was interesting on this is we are up over 10,000 transactions per hour. That is approaching 3 transactions per second, which is just about the Bitcoin limit of transactions per second. It can only handle about, well, technically they say 7, but if transactions have a larger payload, then it ends up being more like 3. So we are right at capacity, folks. 3 transactions per second is just about as much as Bitcoin can handle. We're going to talk about that. Elsewhere in Bitcoin news, we've got Bitcoin Core 12.0 released. We've been talking about that for the last few weeks. It's got some new features in it. It's a major new release. You can see, the last time we had a major release was, let's see, back in February of 2015, right? So about a year ago. Oh wait, that was 2 releases ago. Anyway, this doesn't happen every day. This is a major new release, and it's got major new features. One of which, my favorite to kind of bring up, is replaced by fee. Remember, this is the feature that allows you to put a dime in the vending machine, and then when you get your candy bar, you can pull the dime back out. All right, and I think it's a bad thing, but there are very smart people that think it's good for Bitcoin, because a double spend is always possible, and this makes it explicit, basically making a double spend within that first 10 minutes more possible, so it makes people be more careful. That's the justification. And they want this feature because they want to create a fee marketplace. So if you submit a transaction with a low fee, they want to give people the ability to create a new transaction, same Bitcoin, higher fee. So that's where they're coming from there. And if we look at our Bitcoin user agents, last week, it wasn't released yet, I don't believe, or maybe it had just been released, and we were at about 3%, 2.8%. on version 12, and now we're at 15.8, 15.9. Basically, there's a 15% chance that a node that clears your transaction will support this replace by fee feature. So it's definitely something to be aware of. If you're accepting Bitcoin in your business, you need to check, because this is an opt-in thing. If someone gives you a Bitcoin transaction and they've flipped the flag that allows the transaction to be replaced by fee, then you need to wait 10 minutes before you hand over your $1 million yacht that you just sold, or your hamburger, or your.
So if you got a wallet, if you're doing say wallet to wallet, how will you find that?
Your wallet needs to support this feature. Needs to warn you, and this is not widely.
Or you have to find that?
Well, it should tell you automatically. I mean, this is a feature that Bitcoin wallets need to put in their software, but not all of them have done that. So, yeah, it's something to.
Airbits has.
Pardon me?
Airbits.
Airbits has not yet, but it's on their roadmap.
You can just wait for one confirmation anyway. It does not matter. As soon as it gets a confirmation on the blockchain, it does not matter if it's replaced by if it can be replaced by a fee or not. It's only zero confirmation transaction affected by it. Okay.
Right.
So the replace by fee is not about confirmation speed. It's more about confirmation security or something.
Well, it's something that will force you to have to wait for at least one confirmation, right? But the thing is, the Bitcoin network is overflowing right now, and sometimes, well, it's quite possible that your first confirmation could arrive way later than you're accustomed to, especially if you don't.
Minutes the last time I bought one.
There are people, well, I'll show you in a minute. There are people on Reddit that are saying like it's been 6 hours and my transaction hasn't been confirmed. Now, that's a function of the fee that they attach. I mean, you can still submit a transaction to the Bitcoin network with no fee, right? And just wait for someone to pick it up and clear it. So who knows? Who knows what the details are? But people are, well, I'm going to pull up the front page of Reddit and show you guys, like, there's a cacophony of people screaming about delayed transaction confirmations. So. And well, this is it in a nutshell, guys. This is you can see that we have. That's really hard to see, isn't it? Is that gonna be better?
It's good enough.
Okay.
Yeah. We're in the red.
Well, you can see that we are approaching a sustained level that's higher than these were two quote unquote spam attacks or stress tests that happened. When was that? I don't know. Earlier, like in the middle of 2015. Yeah. And you know, this was designed to show that what would happen if the Bitcoin network got full. So you know, we spiked way up here, and now under natural conditions, although some people are suggesting that there's another quote DDoS attack or spam attack or stress test going on right now, but you can see that it won't be long before we are at a sustained level above even these stress tests from the middle of 2015. So very interesting times. Yeah, we're going to get back to that in a minute. Let's go around the world. This is a story posted in the group, and the reason we're talking about all this stuff around the world is because there's a macro environment within which Bitcoin operates. There are central bankers managing their own currencies around the world, and that has an effect on the, how shall I say, the attractiveness of Bitcoin. This story is about Japan selling 10-year bonds at a negative yield for the first time. So basically you give Japan money, and 10 years later, they give you a little bit less money. Why would you want to do this? Anybody care to guess?
You can't get better offer anywhere else.
That's right. That's right. They're like, you know, you could lose 3%. How about if we just lose, you know, a little bit?
We'll guarantee you will only.
Yes, we'll guarantee you will only lose you like, I forget what the percentage is. But people like Japan. It's a very industrious society. They work hard, and they've been playing around with monetary policy for a long time now. Anybody hear about the lost decade? I think it's the lost 2 decades now of deflation. A lot of people think that Japan is like the canary in the coal mine, that we'll be watching Japan to see what happens to the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is on a similar demographic footing and on a similar monetary policy approach. And so if you want to see the future, see what's going on in Japan. Now, why is this interesting for Bitcoin? Well, what will Bitcoin be worth in 10 years? Well, it'll probably either be worth 0, or if it still lives, it will be worth wildly more than it is today. And so people who think that, even if they think that might happen, then that drives them a little bit into the Bitcoin world. Even if you had 10% of your money in crypto, in the crypto world, if it were to succeed, it would totally eclipse any losses you would take in other areas. So I think it's a good thing to have as a part of a diversified portfolio. Put a little bit in, and if you lose it, it's just a little bit. But if it actually succeeds, then maybe it'll actually be something, right?
But it's interesting what you sense in the market, right? Because bonds traditionally have been a very safe bet. It's like the safest bet you can have almost. And it's always been a case you won't get 5%, but you'll get 3%. So, you're still going to get something, but not as much as what you could if you've got more risk appetite. Now, it's changing, going, well, you'll lose a little bit, but not as much as what you could, which shit falls apart in the next few years. Mm-hmm. So the whole sentiment around what they're saying is completely changing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you lose more than if you had cash.
Yes, although there's also a war on cash, and it's unclear what will happen with cash. Cash becomes devalued. It's being devalued around the world.
Yeah.
So.
But even since it's denominated in cash or the local currency.
Yeah.
So if you just sit on money or cash, then it's better. So it seems to me that they're somehow forcing the banks to accept their bonds.
No, the cost of storing cash is much higher than 0.2%. You have to pay so much for security and stuff, so it's not possible for the bank. It's institutional investors.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting graph down here that shows the interest rates. This is going out 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Look at it's all negative until you get right out there to the 30-year mark, and that's when you can actually get some yields. So this flat blue area just represents that people think it's going to be crappy for quite a while, right? We're underwater here. This is the deep blue sea. We're gurgle right here until we get some air 10 years from now. So, all right, that's Japan. Where else do you want to go, guys? How about Africa? More phones, few banks, and years of instability are transforming Somalia into a cashless society. Now, normally I don't like these cashless headlines. You guys know that. I'm always worried when they want to get rid of cash. But what's cool about this is happening in Africa, and it's in a very non-stable country, Somalia. Mogadishu, ever heard of it? I think there's like roving bands of marauders, chopping people's head off. I don't know. It's like not a nice place. But due to that instability, they've come up with their own solutions, right? And for them, it's feature phones, which is just a little phone and a way to keep track of value. It's not Bitcoin. It's these proprietary systems that have been introduced by the telecoms companies, but they are totally leapfrogging the whole banking industry, doing their own thing, making it work. This actually happened in various parts on the African continent once before with telecoms, right? They never dug a bunch of landlines in Africa to have a phone on your wall that you have a rotary dial phone, right? They never dug all those trenches. They never ran all that copper for people to have phones in their house. They just went straight to mobile, right? They just put up a bunch of towers and whiz bang boom, everybody had mobile phones and no need to, they just leapfrogged an entire generation of technology. And now they're doing the same thing with banking. You know, these guys are part of the 2.5 billion people that don't have bank accounts. You know, they have no access to modern finances. You know, and they need to take a loan in order to fill up their taxi cab with gas in the morning, right? And then they pay the local land shark 100% interest per day, right? They're totally off the global financial grid, but they're getting there through technology and leapfrogging. You know, all of us who have had banks our whole life, you know, we that's the way we think. We think we need a bank to do stuff, and these guys are proving it wrong. I mean, it's kind of a proof of concept that this kind of thing could, you know, this could be Bitcoin. This could provide financial services for people who don't have banks. And by the way, with Bitcoin, you don't need a telecoms company. So it's an interesting example of what's possible, right? Communities coming together and solving their own problems, and out of chaos comes something good, if you can say that.
There's been a similar system going on in Bangladesh for quite a few years. People managing their finances on their phones. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about that. They have the M-Pesa thing in Kenya.
Yeah.
And
it's Bcash.
Bcash.
And it's bankrolled. It's not the right word, but supported by BRAC, which is the biggest NGO in the world. And BRAC has its own universities, has its own parallel health and education systems, but it also has a bank. There's BRAC Bank, which is a development bank in Bangladesh, and it's serving millions of people.
No, that's fascinating. I hadn't heard about that.
Tell you about it
Yeah,
sometime.
yeah. Let's take a look at that.
between BRAC and microcredit.
Well, I think the microcredit's a separate thing, but this is phone-based transfer of
So it didn't come out
value.
of microcredit or anything like that, because that originated in Bangladesh.
Yeah. BRAC's doing a whole lot of things.
So what's interesting about that for me is it's a central push to get that out into people's hands and to make it happen. If you've got a large NGO involved, or maybe it's a telecoms company, there's a big marketing push, there's a big kind of rollout, there's a concerted effort to get critical mass, to get the network effects that is required. And it's interesting to compare and contrast, because Bitcoin has no such central authority or central push to make that happen. I wonder if it will ever get there without something similar. If it's just seeping out into the populace, will that work, or would it be better if there was some sort of concerted effort to get the technology into people's hands, so that there's ubiquity? I mean, until these things are ubiquitous, they're not all that useful. Right?
But yeah, ubiquitous for who? Because you've got this whole part of less than half the world has come up through the banking system, and we're all kind of tied in and invested emotionally and financially in that system. But then there's this whole millions and millions and millions of people who never had bank accounts.
Right.
That's it. They
Yeah,
live in the cash world, and now they're living in the mobile phone world and moving value around on their phones.
Right. But
they don't have to cancel their bank accounts or
right. Well,
to take up something else like M-Pesa or
well, and all of those people that you're referring to, well, many of them are used to cash. They're in a cash. That happens here in Bali, right? Like my landlord doesn't have a bank account. He takes rent in cash, and yeah, the largest note is worth about $8 US, so that ends up being a large stack of bills.
Look at menu. It's a suitcase.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, well, someone was telling me in Japan they have a cash-based society, and like normal everyday people will show up to buy a car with a suitcase full of bills. Yeah, in Japan, yes.
well, maybe they've been keeping their money under the bed to kind of hedge against the
Yeah.
negative interest rate.
interest
Could be.
rates.
Could be.
That's all that is. That's an invitation to take it out of your bed. Right?
Need a new car. The bed's getting lumpy.
Talking about this
that don't have a bank account, but M-Pesa is also bank after all. What's the difference?
No, it's telecom.
What's the difference?
You don't need to go to a place and register yourself with an ID, and anybody can have an account.
Yeah, you don't have to do any AML, any KYC or anything like that. Just put money. You go to your local place to put phone credit in. Say you put 100,000 rupee in. You can send 50,000 to your mum in the next village, and she can go to a local place and withdraw that 50,000 off her phone through credit. So it's a way of transferring value without any bank account whatsoever. But it's done by the central authority, is the telecom networks itself. So like Telkomsel, for example.
So it's a payment network, which is completely separate to banking services.
I'd be very curious to know if they're doing fractional reserve banking with the balances on those phones.
Good question. What, is there any lending happening?
It's not possible.
It's not possible to do fractional reserve.
Why not?
Of course it's possible. But there's it's a whole heap. There's no lending or anything happening. It's purely transferring value, and the store of value is the phone credit itself. Whether the telecom is licensed as a financial institution on the side and they're doing something on an institutional level, maybe, but like in terms of actually they're acting as a bank and providing credit, no.
As far as I know,
Payment network, yeah.
as far as I know, the M-Pesa can only be converted in and out of cash because privates decide to do so of their own volition, and M-Pesa facilitates them if they wish to do so. But you cannot go to an M-Pesa store and say, "Give me $10 million of worth of credit." In a sense. So if you want, you can stay on the phone for the next 5 years and use the money up. But there's no point in which you have to. There cannot be a rush to the bank, to the M-Pesa bank, because there's no cash that is given out. All the credit is used as phone credit eventually, although it isn't in a sense.
Oh, but I thought that they were.
M-Pesa converts in and out of.
It goes in and out.
Okay.
They can go to their local guy and say here, for example, you go to, you've got 100,000 on your phone, you can go to your local guy standing on the side of the road. You get 50,000 and he gets his 2,000.
But that's an informal transaction between you and that guy at the street. The company that runs the system will not pay you out cash for that money. As in that is still just phone credit for them. So even if they were running a fractional reserve system, that currency is still just phone minutes, phone credit. So that there's no real money that comes
It's only backed by a phone call in the future.
So it's the
Or text.
it's redeemable only. M-Pesa is only redeemable for phone credit.
But 60% of the GBP is
passing
through it.
is based on M-Pesa. How is it possible? I must be talking a lot.
Right. Nobody said you have to actually spend the money on phone credit.
Yeah, they're just.
Just that you
It's,
get
it's lots of long distance relationships, you know, where they talk on the phone for hours, you know, just whispering sweet nothings. All right. Okay. Anybody ever read Zero Hedge? Zero Hedge.
when I'm angry.
It's my guilty pleasure. If you want to just, you know, twist your mustache and wait for the world to end, you can just go to Zero Hedge and find all kinds of confirmation bias for the world is ending. So please, you know, keep yourself on a limited Zero Hedge diet. But they do have some very good analysis. And did anybody see this story? Why a hedge fund manager who made a killing from subprime is buying Bitcoin? Anybody seen this? This is a very interesting analysis of the situation in China. According to Hart, while a devaluation this year would be jarring and may initially accelerate capital outflows, it would ultimately put China in a stronger position. So China is facing downward pressure on their currency, and they basically need to use their reserves in order to prop up the exchange value of the currency. But if they were to basically not want to have as much money needed to support the valuation, they can let it devalue, and then they spend less of their reserves in order to prop it up. But that devalues the currency for everyone that holds it. So there is an impetus to get your Chinese yuan out of the country, right, before the next devaluation happens. And that's what he's describing here. Hart is correct that China will have to pick one option, either a sharp devaluation or failing that, debt defaults. The current course of gradual CNY debasement will only result in the acceleration of capital outflows until ultimately China's $3 trillion rainy day fund is whittled away to nothing. So that $3 trillion is what they use to defend the yuan. And they're saying that as much as $2 trillion of that is illiquid assets. So there's a tremendous pressure to devalue, right? So if that happens, then this will have a strong effect on Bitcoin. Why Bitcoin? They basically described back in September why there would be pressure on Bitcoin to rise in value. And by the way, since September of last year, I think we were at 250 or something. We've gone up to 400 something. So perhaps this is why. Traditionally, they've used gold, but check this out. While gold has historically been the best store of value in history and has outlasted every currency known to man, it is problematic when it comes to transferring funds in and out of the nation. It tends to show up on X-rays. There was one guy that got arrested. His whole back of his car was filled with gold, and he tried to go through some checkpoint. I think this is in the Middle East somewhere. His Cadillac was like scraping bottom. And they opened up the trunk, and there's like all this, Anyway, why is that thing there? Which is why we would not be surprised to see another push higher in the value of Bitcoin. It was earlier this summer when the digital currency, which can bypass capital controls and national borders with the click of a button, surged on Brexit concerns and fears of the drachma return. Since then, BTC has dropped in no small part as a result of previously documented forking with XT. So we've this problem with transaction volume has been going on since last summer, when Bitcoin was only worth about $3 billion. Right now, the market cap is over $6 billion. So we've doubled in price since they did this analysis back then. And now they're saying that it's going to happen again. They're saying that there's a devaluation imminent and that there is 25 trillion in deposits that could presumably seek a safe haven outside of the country. So 25 trillion, Bitcoin is only worth 6 billion, right? That's a lot less than 25 trillion. If even a small amount of that 25 trillion tried to leave China via Bitcoin, it would have a tremendous effect on the price, right? But we've got this problem with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is at its max in terms of transaction volume. So you've got these two forces going against one another. Like, will Bitcoin survive? And we've got 25 trillion to move with Bitcoin. What will happen?
But why do you say it's not going to survive? It's just the fees are going to get higher.
I'm just going for ratings, man. Just like trying to get people riled up. I know it's going to survive. Come on.
So why?
What is it? Come on.
So Gary, why is Bitcoin the cryptocurrency of choice for China?
Why is it the cryptocurrency of choice? Well, I mean,
because, like, if you look at other cryptocurrencies, like, barely, like, only a few can actually be traded in China. But if you look at Bitcoin, there's like a lot of changes that you can actually convert automatically Chinese currency to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And even like people are talking about Ethereum and stuff spiking up and all that, but only like a few weeks ago they started doing Chinese yuan to Ethereum, and that's been happening for Bitcoin for ages.
Yeah, Bitcoin is about 20 times larger than the next largest cryptocurrency, and it also has all of the tools and technology to go along with it that have been developed that are in a large part further along than other currencies. And yeah, it's got the most liquid market around the world. So it makes sense that they're using Bitcoin for this as opposed to other things. But who knows? Maybe some things are trickling out in other cryptocurrencies. There are lots of cryptocurrencies in the top 10 that have moved up tremendously in the last 3 or 4 months as well. Yeah, could be.
By the way, do you remember like when the price was going up, we were discussing that nobody actually knows why it's going up?
Uh-huh.
I just showed me an article today, and I never actually saw it, that actually right in September 15th, this ETF that actually is like, they're based in New York, and they've done like amazing bets. They did like Facebook, they did like amazing companies, Apple. They have like the best companies in their portfolio.
Uh-huh.
They announced they're investing in Bitcoin.
Right. What is it?
I missed that. I never saw that, but it's huge. And I looked at the price, and exactly as soon as they announced it, little by little, it's going up.
Huh.
And everybody was wondering why it happened.
When was this?
September 15th last year. What was the name of the company again?
I wasn't sure. I forgot actually.
It wasn't the Winklevoss twins, though.
No,
Because
No, it's another
you're
one.
talking about an ETF, exchange traded fund, basically paper Bitcoin,
Or
or
meant a hedge fund.
sorry,
not an ETF.
it's a hedge fund.
Oh, okay. All right.
But somehow I missed that, and there wasn't really. Like, I looked for videos, there wasn't really that many places. But if you go on their page, they're really going long on Bitcoin. They're saying $250 or whatever the price was then is perfect because we think that
Yeah.
it's a perfect entry point, and as soon as they
Fascinating.
but nobody talked about it.
Hedge funds generally,
But that's
they're
huge.
generally not that public, but hedge funds.
Okay, I guess. But that's huge. These guys are like the first movers.
Yeah.
And if you look at what they've invested in, it's like amazing.
Yeah. So everybody knows that we're not giving investment advice right now. Like, please do not point to us. Go buy, put your life savings in Bitcoin, and come find us after you.
It's really weird though because people usually expect that like prices go up on sort of all these world events and stuff like that. But like,
But it's also
Could also be a
it's great
coincidence,
demand. It's about
yeah,
demand.
but basically it's like first mover on Wall Street, right? Like that sort of gives an entry point for other investors with big money. There's little news that feel like affect people like us, the price movements, but like when people with a lot of money and hedge funds start going into Bitcoin, so it really, and off I guess China as well is when really prices start.
But if a hedge fund decides to seriously go into something, they can move entire markets, they can move entire currencies. The sheer volume that these guys have sitting over in Cayman is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've got a question. If China devalued all of a sudden, right, they're not stupid. They'd be aware that there's risks of how people are going to get their money out and stuff like this. They have the Great Wall of China in terms of all traffic goes through.
You mean the
sensors,
firewall of
the
China?
firewall, the Great Wall of
Not the actual physical Great
Not the
Wall.
physical one, the electronic one. What happens if they just unplug or stop everything? Just unplug it. Like, yep, we're dropping this, unplug it for a couple of days. What happens to the mining capacity of Bitcoin? Because maybe 50% of the mining is happening in China. What happens to the rest of the network?
It has been discussed before. There would be a fork, and there would be two Bitcoin networks with two different types of different transactions and different blocks be mined for as long as that occurs. And then either they would fork off the two completely different directions that would be reconciled whenever the block on the internet is finished. But then all the transactions on one side of the fork compared to the other would be completely nullified, and probably the price would crash to near zero.
So would the Bitcoin network have the actual capacity to run itself if 50% of the mining's gone, and I don't know what percentage of the transactions are emanating out of China, but
Only the two
Would it
halves
still
of the
hold
snake
up?
would keep moving.
But
And the two
Well,
halves
but-
of the snake would keep moving independently, but they would not be able to reconcile each other with itself.
but
And
let's say at the moment 80% of the transactions are happening outside of China.
transactional mining.
And transactions, and then mining over 50% is happening in China, which is running the network, and China's cut off. What happens? Does the network have the actual capacity to run those transactions now, or is it all for the capacity running well?
Why don't you go first?
Like you can have the entire Bitcoin network with one computer if everybody else is mining. So there isn't necessarily going to be a sufficient number of computers connected to the network in order for the network to function. So you can remove 95% of the hash rate of the nodes, and the network will still be functional in a sense. And no matter how many parts you remove, it still remains functional as long as there's a sufficient number, a hardcore of it. If you remove China from the internet for a few days, you will get the internal Bitcoin network that there is in China, which runs itself just fine. And there will be the Bitcoin network outside of China, which also runs itself just fine. Transaction will continue being performed on both sides. And the moment that they reconcile themselves, though, whenever they are reconnected to each other, one of the two chains will be longer than the other. All the nodes and all the other miners will recognize that that is the case. The forks will be reconciled, but there will be all the transactions which occur on the smaller fork would have been nullified by the existence of a longer fork that takes its place. So all the transactions will not have existed once the once that happens.
So
Right.
confidence just
So-
goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
down the drain. But then you cannot block you cannot block Bitcoin in China without blocking all the internet in China. As in
And
the
capacity,
all
right?
connectivity. Sorry?
They have the capacity through this Great Wall.
Yeah, but if they did like all companies that do business in China would completely be incapable of performing any type of business activity in the country.
No Alibaba?
Exactly. I live in Alibaba. As in you have a contact, as in you have a branch of a company in Los Angeles and one in Shanghai. All of a sudden, you're unable to send each other attachments. All your business activity, international business activity, completely goes to zero. As in the type of loss of confidence that it would be if they cut off China from the internet at large would be gigantic. It's like turning off electricity in the entire country at this point. It's not something that's within the realms of practicality. What they can do is shut down the exchanges, which is a lot easier and a lot faster. So they can shut down BTCC, Huobi, and OKCoin. That way, you have no more way to turn your renminbi that wants to escape the country into Bitcoin.
Surely you'd only have to shut off the Bitcoin network for a block or two.
Sorry?
If the Chinese were to stop the internet for 15 minutes,
Yes.
wouldn't that be big enough fork?
There are forks all the time in the Bitcoin network. Like there's a fork I think at least every day there's a tiny fork that nobody complains about, and on which hopefully nothing has been double spent. But that's not the problem for the Bitcoin network at large. Like 15 minutes does not do any damage. Sometimes blocks are not mined for hours, so the 15 minutes offline is something that doesn't really affect the state of affairs that much.
I would just add one subtle point, and that is that the difficulty is only adjusted every 2 weeks. And if you lost half your mining capacity, you would be at a difficulty that would be way too much for the remaining hashing power, and you would have blocks that would take inordinately long. So those kinds of changes need to happen gradually, and if they don't, it's a problem.
So if they take all the mining power is lost, and the transactions outside of China are taking far too long so they're taking 24 hours to confirm or whatnot. But in China, there's still got the mining capacity internally and it's all still going on. Their block's going to be a lot longer than what's outside, right?
Yes, so they'll have the longer
So I'll drop back
blockchain,
in
and when it comes back online, everything that was cleared on the shorter chain will be nullified. No bueno.
Yeah.
Because there's an article on NASDAQ today about one of the reasons around the block size argument, and I don't know, I think we've mentioned, but is the latency of the blocks getting in and out of China through the firewall, and it's taking like, say, it's latency of 10 seconds. But it's enough to get behind in the calculation of the next block.
It's why some people don't want to increase the block size without a certain point. Something else that was discussed recently, which is actually sadly very true, is that for all the talk of decentralization, the Chinese government only needs to knock on about 12 doors to shut down 60% of the Bitcoin network, and which would take like 10 minutes for that, and maybe 20 people. So there is a problem with so many miners being behind the Great Firewall.
So there's 12 doors in China to knock on, and there's 5 developers in California with commit access to Bitcoin Core. But it is decentralized, because I said it was. It is decentralized. No, it is. Yes, hang on to your hats, folks. It's all going to be fine. All right. We are almost out of time, so we're going to have to talk about this rather quickly. I already mentioned that we are at our capacity. We're way above even these stress tests that happened mid last year. There was an article back in May from our man Mike Hearn, who describes what will happen if the blocks are full. In this article, I will examine 2 scenarios. The first is what will happen next year when I predict blocks will be over full, which they are. We are running substantially the same software, which essentially we are. Right? We don't have any software fixes for the block size problem yet, and we are at capacity. So we're almost out of time, so I can just steer you towards this article in the show notes. But what basically, long story short, a permanent backlog would begin to build up. And basically, when there's a backlog, the Bitcoin nodes have to keep the unconfirmed transactions in their RAM in their what's called the mempool, and if they fill up their mempool, then the node fails, right? So again, not the greatest.
This has been fixed now with the latest, with this 12.0.
Oh, what's wrong? Really?
Yeah, that's you can now have a setting and say how much transactions you can keep, and it doesn't crash. So
okay, but if the mempool ends up being consistently above that threshold, it would be a problem, right?
not anymore.
Okay.
Not
All right.
about this.
Interesting. I mean, I know they've known it's a problem for a long time, so it sounds like they put something interesting in the new release.
Yeah, or if you want to open this 12.0,
It's in there?
it's dealing exactly with this problem. So now you can
Okay.
set it to your node, how much backlog you want, and everything should be working perfectly.
Okay.
So,
Cool. All right, maybe we'll take a look at that next week.
It just doesn't solve the main problem, obviously, though. That really,
The backlog.
I started being a huge proponent for increase of block size, but now, after 7 or 8 months, I really don't think we need to increase it.
Well, one of the
fist fight later.
well, one of the interesting things about Bitcoin is that we were just talking about how centralized it is, but it's no one person or no body has been able to address this problem and force their way. So we haven't had a change. So even though there are all these really strong opinions about what the way we should go forward, no changes have existed. So it's very conservative. That might be a good thing, might be a bad thing. There's lots of very creative things that people are doing to make sure Bitcoin survives. And well, yeah. Even though we haven't increased the block size, there's interesting proposals out there that hopefully will get us through. But I just wanted to show you guys the front page of the Bitcoin subreddit. Bitcoin's new normal is slow and frustrating. That was an article on Vice.com, which I was going to talk about, but we're out of time. You can see they're talking about the scaling issue. Every block mined on February 29th was full. Is there a stress test going on right now? 6 hours, still no confirmation with 0.001 fee. So this is the equivalent of lots of screaming and shouting in the Reddit world. And Reddit is blocked for most of you guys, so maybe you haven't seen this.
I can't believe this with the 001 fee. Can
Yeah.
you open? It's behind the wall.
This
Yeah.
subreddit has a Twitter account of its own, so you can follow it.
Yeah. Incidentally, this is r/Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin Reddit. There is now r/BTC, which is discussing all of the alternatives to Bitcoin, Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Classic. All of those posts are censored on this board on r/Bitcoin, and r/BTC is talking about Bitcoin Unlimited, Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin XT, et cetera, et cetera.
There's a lot of trolling in this subreddit too, so it's not necessarily the most accurate.
Yes. Welcome to the internet. All right. There's some other articles. I'll post them in the show notes. This is a kind of a cool visualization of the fee structure and how much things are being delayed in a Satoshi's per byte analysis. I'll post that in the show notes. And I was going to talk about the Lightning Network. Andre, you put this up. This is I'll just say quickly that the Lightning Network is one of the creative ways that people are trying to reduce the amount of throughput on the actual Bitcoin network by offloading some of the transaction processing and transaction clearing on a payment channel, which is referred to as this Lightning Network. But unfortunately, we don't have time to go into details. Are there any questions, comments about the state of Bitcoin, about the hair on fire, red-ass discussion that's going on right now as we speak on Reddit? No? Everyone's happy?
I just think it's really like there's so many things, so many problems. It looks like when you read all this stuff with Bitcoin, and like there's no responses in the price. It's actually kind of going up. It's so weird.
Well,
That's the weirdest thing.
Imagine what will happen if they solve these problems. I know there is money on the sidelines that's just waiting for these problems to be solved. When the Bitcoin Roundtable met and looked like they were going to have 80% of the hashing power was going to make some decision and bypass all of these all this controversy, the price went up 15, 20% or something. So you know that people are just waiting for this stuff to be solved. If it's solved, it's going to be a boon for the price. So there's this, it's interesting that all this stuff is happening in this macroeconomic environment that is so shark infested and problematic, you know. Just makes it fun, man. Makes Tuesday night fun. Can't miss it. All right, guys, we're out of time. Thank you for coming tonight. Please check out our Facebook group, Bitcoins in Bali, and also our YouTube channel. Subscribe if you're so inclined. And we will see you next week, same time. Thanks for coming, guys. Oh, yes. Saturday we've got Bitcoin 101. Send us your noobs. And don't forget, we've got